After rebirth, the mala hot pot I ordered smelled better than his life. The phone on the bedside table buzzed. A sharp, life-demanding whine. I forced my eyes open. The crystal chandelier above so familiar stunned my vision. My stomach churned. Waves of nausea rolling through me, laced with the long, bitter aftertaste of medication. This is Julian's villa. Our marital home. Shouldn't I be in the hospital morgue? A moment ago my heart had stopped from blood loss. My soul hovered above as doctors shook their heads and pulled a white sheet over me. In the next room the rescue lights were blazing and nurses were cheering. Miss Lena made it. Blood type matched. Volume sufficient. I died. And with the last scrap of my worth, I brought my husband's first love back to life. How ironic. The phone kept buzzing on the bedside, refusing to be silenced. The name flashing on the screen, Mira. She was the Julian household's housekeeper. My hand trembled as I reached for it. The screen read 4 in the afternoon. That time. That call, all carved. Memory crashed over me like a tide and drowned me. It was that call. In my last life Mira had phoned. Sobbing Julian had been in a serious car accident protecting Lena. Both were rushed to the hospital. Lena was a rare Rh negative and needed massive transfusions. I happened to be a match. So I dragged my body reduced to a stick of bones by severe depression and anorexia like a madwoman to the hospital. I knelt before the doctor and begged him to draw my blood, take as much as necessary. Just save Lena. Because Julian had said that if Lena died, he would have me buried with her. How I loved him then. And how I feared him. I lay on the cold donation bed and watched my bright red blood flow, drop by drop, into the body of the woman I hated most. In the end she lived and I died. And Julian, the man I loved to the marrow, didn't even glance in my direction. He stayed at Lena's bedside hand in hand, never leaving. Ridiculous. Utterly laughable. I looked at the phone still buzzing. And a week. A cold smile tugged at my lips. To get a second chance, how wonderful. I didn't answer. I hit the red hang up button. Silence descended like a blessing. A familiar spasm tight and in my stomach, hunger braided with pain. In my former life I hadn't felt hunger for so long. Anorexia made food itself nauseating. But now, for the first time, an intense, desperate craving for food rose from my gut. I wanted to eat. I wanted something hot. Spicy, something that would sear my mouth and stomach and prove I was still alive. With all the strength I could muster I sat up, grabbed my phone, and opened the delivery app like a pro. Among the glittering options I found my target. Mala hot pot. I ordered from the most expensive place. Added double portions of tripe, luncheon meat, crab sticks, cheese rice cakes. Everything Julian had forbidden me in the name of unhealthy. I set the flavor to extra numbing. Extra spicy. The moment payment went through I felt as if I had completed a grand ritual of revenge. Outside the sky darkened. I left the lights off and sat quietly in the dark, waiting for my dinner. The phone rang a few more times. Mira. My mother-in-law, then a number I didn't recognize. Probably the hospital. I didn't pick up any of them. I hung up each time. They must be frantic. The precious, fragile Lena, Julian's darling, was lying on an operating table, waiting for my blood to save her. Too bad. This life I don't want to be a saint. I just want to eat a proper meal. About 40 minutes later the doorbell rang. I dragged my floaty legs to the door. The delivery man handed me a heavy container. Your order. Enjoy your meal. Thank you. I shut the door and opened the box. A domineering aroma of chili and Szechuan pepper swept the cold living room. I picked up my chopsticks, grabbed a slice of tripe drenched in red oil, and popped it into my mouth. Numbing. Spicy. Savory. Scalding. The long mist, fierce rush of flavor made tears spill down my face instantly. It's divine. So this is how food tastes. I ate like a beast starved for ages, big greedy mouthfuss. The scorching food slid down my throat into my hollow stomach, delivering a warm, stinging comfort. This is good. Being alive is good. The phone vibrated again on the table. I glanced Julian's assistant. Looks like they still can't find me. I couldn't be bothered. I kept eating my mala hot pot. Halfway through, the villa door was thrown open with a key. My mother-in-law Mara, always immaculate, burst in wearing a face full of fury and panic, Miras tumbling after her. Nova! Say you're here. Why haven't you answered your phone? Don't you know Julian's had an accident? Mara launched at me with a volley of accusations. When her eyes fell on my mala hot pot, her anger snapped into astonishment and disbelief. You actually have the nerve to eat right now? She shrieked. Miss Lena is in the hospital waiting for your blood. You heartless woman. I calmly dabbed the oil from the corner of my mouth with a napkin. Then I looked up at the fury twisting her features and smiled. Soft and cold. Oh, I said. I'm hungry. My calm. The steaming bowl in front of me. And her hysterics made a brutal contrast. Mara had probably never seen this version of me. In my last life I was forever meek under her gaze, head bowed, compliant. You're insane. She stammered, her fingers shaking as she pointed. Maybe I am. I nodded. Picked up a piece of luncheon meat. Blew on it. Put it in my mouth. And closed my eyes in satisfaction. This luncheon meat tastes better than his life. The police came to the door. Suddenly I was a widow worth billions. My words landed like a loud slap across Mara's face. She must never have imagined, and that the daughter-in-law she treated like a household accessory barely daring to take a breath would dare speak such sacrilege. Unbelievable. The world's turned upside down. Mara trembled with fury, pointing an accusing finger at me. Nova, I order you right now. Immediately. Go to the hospital. If anything happens to Miss Lena, I'll make you regret it. An order? That word. I'd heard it countless times in my last life. Julian ordered me to give up my career and stay home as a full-time wife. Mara ordered me to wake up at 6 every morning to make breakfast and to do it with proper humility. I used to think all that was love, or duty. Now I know it was nothing more than a master training her servant. I set down my chopsticks and took a sip of warm water to soothe the chilly burn in my throat. First, I lifted my eyes and looked at her calmly. You're not my mother. So you have no right to order me around. Second, I married Julian, I didn't sell myself to his family. I have my own freedom. Third, whether Lena lies or dies. What does that have to do with me? Am I her walking blood bank? With every sentence, Mara's face turned a shade paler. By the time I finished, her lips were trembling so hard she could barely speak. You vicious woman. She finally spat out between clenched teeth. Call me whatever you like. I shrugged infuriately and picked my chopsticks back up. But if you keep yelling, my spicy hot pot's going to get cold. My composure completely shattered her control. Like a maddened lioness, she lunged toward me, ready to overturn the table. But I was faster. I grabbed the half-finished bowl of spicy soup, stood, had a kozai, and stepped back. Touch that table, I warned coldly, and I'll pour this all over your precious face. There was a sharpness in my tone even I barely recognized. Mara, pampered and privileged all her life, froze. The fury in my eyes pinned her where she stood, her hand awkwardly suspended in the air. Just then, let out a low sigh. Her phone rang. She seized it like a lifeline and hurried to answer. On the other end, it seemed to be Julian's assistant, saying something in a low, urgent tone. Mara's complexion turned deathly white. What did you say? She shrieked. Resuscitation. Failed? The phone slipped from her hand and hit the carpet with a dull thud. Her body crumpled. And if Mira hadn't caught her, she would have collapsed completely. Julian. My Julian. She murmured blankly. Her eyes hollow, as though her soul had just been ripped away. I looked at her without the slightest ripple of emotion, no satisfaction, no triumph, just emptiness. So this was the woman who had tormented me for so long. And when news of her son's death arrived, all I felt was peace. Maybe that was because my heart had already died back in that hopeless marriage. Julian had been dead to me long before today. I stepped around her, carried my bowl to the sofa, and sat down to finish my meal. It was a little cold by now, but still tasted just fine. I didn't know how much time had passed when the doorbell rang. Mira, pale and shaking, went to answer it. Two uniformed police officers stood at the door. Excuse me, the older one asked solemnly. Is this the residence of Mrs. Nova? I set my bowl down and walked over. I am. His gaze lingered on me for a moment before he handed me a folder. Mrs. Nova. We're with the city traffic department. I'm sorry to inform you that at approximately 3:15 this afternoon, there was a severe car accident on the Riverside Expressway. Your husband, Mr. Julian, and another passenger, Ms. Lena, adding fulfilled what I had said, were pronounced dead at the scene after unsuccessful resuscitation efforts. This is the death confirmation form. Please sign here. His words were delivered in a formal, practiced tone, but each one felt like a nail sealing shut the coffin of my previous life. I took the paper and pen. My hand was steady, completely steady. In the blank for next of kin, I wrote my name. Nova. The moment I finished, it felt like an invisible, heavy chain around my body shattered with a clang. I was free. The officer took back the file and added, according to our preliminary investigation, the cause of the accident was Mr. Julian's excessive speeding and failure to wear a seatbelt. The final report is still under review, and will contact you regarding further arrangements. Thank you, I said, nodding politely. After they left, silence fell over the villa like a suffocating fog. Then Mara snapped out of her stupor. She lifted her head abruptly, her bloodshot eyes locking on me with venomous hatred. It's you. It's all your fault, she screamed, lunging at me with clawed fingers. You cursed him. You killed my son. Why didn't you donate blood? Why didn't you save Lena? If Lena had lived, Julian wouldn't be dead. Her logic was as ridiculous as ever. I sidestepped her easily, watching her stumble and fall onto the carpet. First, I said coldly, your son was the one driving. And he was speeding. His death has nothing to do with me. Second, only family members can donate blood. What family is Lena to you? And third, I crouched down beside her, lowering my voice until only she could hear. You got it wrong. Even if I had donated blood, I could only have saved Lena. Your son died instantly from a cranial hemorrhage. In my previous life, I'd only learned that detail after my death, overhearing nurses whispering about it. Julian had been doomed from the start. They'd only dragged me in to save the woman he loved. Mara's pupils contracted violently. She hadn't expected me to know so much. You let out a mouth sigh. You. What? Me? I straightened, looking down at her. I'd just decided not to be a fool anymore. With that, I turned away and climbed the stairs. What I needed now was a long, hot shower to wash away the humiliation, sickness, and dust of my previous life. From this day forward, I was no longer anyone's wife, nor anyone's daughter-in-law. I was simply Nova, a free widow, heaven fatal, newly liberated, and heir to 100 billion. My mother-in-law told me to get out, so I let her see the power of a will. After my shower I felt truly alive again. Hot water washed over this body that had long been sickly, as if it were rinsing away the deepest weariness in my soul. I looked into the mirror at a pale, gaunt face ringed with dark circles and hardly recognized it. Only 26. And already like a flower on the verge of withering. No matter. I told myself that from today on I'd nurse it back to health. The most expensive skincare, the healthiest food, the most peaceful sleep. I would make this face more radiant, more irresistible than Lena's. I changed into clean pajamas and stepped out of the bathroom. The bedroom door had barely opened when I saw Mara and her youngest son, my brother-in-law Jax, blocking the doorway. Jax and I were the same age, a spoiled trust fund playboy who, riding on Julian's favor, squandered his life on drinking, gambling, and leeching off the family. He looked at me now with undisguised venom and greed. Nova. You bitch. Give me back my brother's life. Jax lunged at me like a rabid dog. I'd expected trouble and stepped back into the room, swinging the door to close it. Jax wedged his foot in the crack with astonishing force. What are you hiding from? You done something dirty and you're scared? He snarled as he pushed his way in. Mara followed, bolstered by her son's presence. With his backing she felt empowered. Nova. You're not welcome here. You killed my son's future, and you actually have the nerve to stay? Pack your things and get out this instant. Get out? I leaned against the wall, arms folded, regarding the mother and son coolly. Mara. Have you forgotten whose name is on this villa? That villa had been Julian's wedding gift to me. The deed bore my name, Nova, and my name alone. In that disastrous marriage, it was the only thing I truly owned. Mara went pale. Jax didn't care. So what if it's in her name? Our money bought this. He was my brother when he dies. His things belong to the Julian family. What right does an outsider like you have to hold on to it? Outsider? I smiled. Jax. Did you ever finish high school? Do you know what the marriage law says? I, Nova, am Julian's only lawful wife in the eyes of the law. With him gone, I am his primary heir. You and your mother, you're the ones with nothing. The real outsiders. You're talking shit. Jack seized at his wounded pride, furious and embarrassed. My brother was so rich there's no way he didn't leave a will. He would have left everything to us. Would he? I sauntered to the nightstand and took my phone from the drawer, opening an encrypted file. It was an electronic copy of a lawyer's letter the one my lawyer friend had issued after my death in the last life, risking the Julian family's wrath to speak for me. I remembered every line. It's oddly convenient for you, I said, turning the phone screen toward them. But your brother did sign a will. I let the silence hang and then cut in with the fatal blow. 3 months ago. Witnessed by top attorney Silas. The will explicitly states that all of Julian's purse and all assets, including but not limited to company shares, real estate, cash and securities, shall, upon his death, be inherited solely by me, Nova. I paused to watch their faces drain of color, and delivered the finishing strike. Oh, and one more thing, I added. The will specifically disinherits his parents and brother from any share. Jax went speechless. No, this can't be. Mara screamed. Julian would never do this to us. It's a forgery, you faked it. Forgery? I retracted the phone. This will be read aloud tomorrow at 9 a.m. by lawyer Silas himself at the shareholders' meeting of the Julian family group. If you don't believe me, go and hear it. Why would Julian make such a will? The reason was simple. 3 months ago Lena returned to the country. Julian wanted to be with her and forced me to divorce. He probably feared I'd refuse. So he used the threat of leaving me with nothing to force my compliance. He thought that if I left with nothing, he could alter the will at any time. But he had miscalculated. He didn't foresee dying before the will took effect. Fate truly has a sense of irony. Mara and Jax had clearly realized this too. Their expressions slid from shock to rage and finally to the grey pallor of despair. A fortune of billions overnight became mine. And they would be left with nothing. You can't do this, Nova. Mara's tone shifted 180 degrees. She lunged at me, trying to grab my hand. I recoiled in disgust. We're family. With Julian gone, you're our only support. She tried the emotional ploy, squeezing out crocodile tears. For Julian's sake, don't throw us out. Family? I regarded her with bitter irony. When you ordered me around like a dog, did you ever think we were family? When you turned a blind eye to your son keeping a mistress, did you ever think we were family? Now your son is dead and suddenly I'm family? Every word hit like a lance. Mara's face flushed and paled in turns. And you? I turned to Jax. Driving my brother's sports car. Chasing third-rate starlets. Draining his credit cards and blowing millions a month. Did you ever stop to think where that money came from? It was saved by your sister-in-law. Penny by penny. Jax flushed crimson and snapped back. Straining his throat, he chose to give me that money. None of your business. Now he's dead, I said. And now it is my business. I stepped toward them, opened the bedroom door wide, and made a curt gesture of invitation. This villa is mine now. I'll give you 1 hour to pack your things and get out of my house. My voice was low but carried an absolute, irrevocable finality. Nova! How dare you? Mara shrieked. Do you want to see if I dare? I pulled out my phone and pretended to dial. Or shall I call security and have you carried out like trash? Jax, being young and thin-skinned, couldn't keep his composure after I said that. He tugged at Mara's sleeve. Mara's gaze was filled with so much hatred it almost seemed tangible. She knew I meant what I said. Finally, having fulfilled my through gritted teeth, she spat out. Fine. Fine. Nova. You're ruthless. We'll see about that. With that, she shot me a glare and, along with Jax, stormed out, slamming the door behind them. The world, at last, was quiet. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling all the energy drain from my body. I'd won the first battle. But I knew. This was just the beginning. A war over inheritance, reputation, and survival had only just begun. And I had to brace myself for what was coming. The funeral of the scumbag, and my first love's family coming to claim my life. The next morning, I contacted Silas, the lawyer. When the phone picked up, a cold and magnetic male voice came through. Who is this? Silas. It's Nova. Mrs. Julian. Silas's voice held no surprise. As if he had been expecting my call. My condolences. He spoke those words mechanically, with no trace of emotion. Silas was one of the top commercial lawyers in the city, known for his calm demeanor, efficiency, and taking only the most profitable cases. It was rumored he had never lost a case. Julian had hired him to handle his will because of his professionalism and discretion. Silas. I'd like to entrust you with handling Julian's estate and inheritance. I got straight to the point. My fees are charged by the hour. At a rate of 100,000 per hour. He replied. No problem. I said. Money was the least of my concerns right now. Very well. Silas seemed pleased by my straightforwardness. At 9 a.m. today, I will attend the Julian family group's board meeting to read the will. After that, my team will begin the process of liquidating all of Mr. Julian's assets. The initial estimate is that it will take about 2 weeks. Thank you for your hard work. It's my duty. He paused before adding. Mrs. Julian, White. A reminder, from today on. What you'll face may not just be legal matters. Be prepared. I understand. After the call ended, I stared out at the bright sunshine and took a deep breath. Silas was right. Mara and her son were just the appetizers. The main course was still ahead. Julian's funeral was set for 3 days later. For those 3 days, I locked myself in the villa, not stepping outside. I had hired a nutritionist and a family doctor, beginning a systematic recovery for my physically drained body. The food I once feared was now made appetizing and nutritious by the careful combinations of the nutritionist. My weight slowly but steadily began to rise. About half a kilogram each day. My phone was nearly overwhelmed with calls. Some were from Julian's relatives. Some from company executives. And some from so-called friends. I ignored them all and blocked every number. On the day of the funeral, I chose a simple black dress and applied light makeup. The woman I saw in the mirror, though still thin, no longer had the vacant, numb look in her eyes. Instead, there was a hint of coldness and resolve. I appeared at the funeral as a widow. The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive and eerie. Julian's family relatives looked at me with mixed expressions: contempt, envy, Ivan Avalosai, and Schadenfreude. The company executives, sharp as ever, wore faces of sorrow, but their eyes were calculating something. Mara and Jax, dressed in mourning clothes, were kneeling in front of the casket. The moment Mara saw me, her eyes turned red, and it seemed like she was about to pounce on me and rip me apart. But Jax held her back. I knew they weren't afraid of me, they were afraid of Silas, the lawyer, behind me. I ignored everyone and walked straight to Julian's black and white memorial photo. In the photo, he was in a crisp suit, handsome and refined, with a slight, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. This man had given me the sweetest love fantasy, but also the cruelest hell. I stared at him, feeling strangely calm inside. No love, no hatred anymore. I took 3 incense sticks, lit them, and bowed 3 times in front of his photo. First bow, to honor our marriage, a bond now severed. Second bow, thank you for your coldness, for helping me awaken. Third bow, wishing you and your first love a safe journey in the afterlife. After the third bow, I inserted the incense into the holder. Just as I turned to leave, a commotion erupted at the door of the memorial hall. The middle-aged couple, looking dignified, rushed in, crying, surrounded by a group of reporters. Julian, You owe my daughter's life. The middle-aged woman threw herself onto Julian's casket, wailing hysterically. I recognized them. They were Lena's parents. In my previous life, they had caused a scene at Julian's funeral just like this, portraying themselves as the grieving, pitiful parents of a lost daughter, gaining the sympathy of everyone. Then, under the guise of emotional distress, they had taken a large sum of money from the Julian family. And now, they were back. After crying for a while, Lena's mother suddenly looked up, her eyes locking onto me. And you? She pointed at me, venom in her eyes. If you hadn't stood by and done nothing, Lena wouldn't have died. You murderer. The reporters behind her immediately aimed their cameras at me, flashing lights blinding me. Lena's mother. Please calm down. One of my bodyguards stepped forward and tried to stop her. I can't calm down. Lena's mother screamed. Her behavior wild. My daughter was killed by her. She's a rare blood type. Yet she watched my daughter bleed to death without doing anything. This is premeditated murder. Murderer. You owe my daughter her life. Lena's father joined in, shouting angrily. Julian's relatives began to whisper amongst themselves. The reporters, sensing blood in the water, were eager to capture every moment. Mara, seeing this, immediately came to life. She rushed over and stood in solidarity with Lena's parents. That's right. It's her. This vicious woman killed Julian and Lena. She's the murderer. The three of them, playing their parts in harmony, immediately thrust me into the eye of the storm. Cold-blooded woman who watched her husband die. The star-crossed villainess who killed her own husband. A fortune grabber who would go so far as to kill two people for inheritance. These labels were practically slapped on my forehead. I watched this farce unfold before me, observing the ugly faces all around, but strangely, my heart felt incredibly calm. Slowly, I pulled out my phone from my bag. Then, Minato no Sai. I connected it to the giant LED screen at the memorial hall. The screen had been looping photos of Julian in life. The next second, the image switched. High definition, time-stamped surveillance video appeared on the screen. The video was from right outside this villa. In it, Julian was seen holding Lena's hand and pushing her into the passenger seat. The two of them kissed for a solid 5 minutes inside the car. Then, what out a low sigh, Julian started the engine. Lena giggled, saying to him, Julian, Doctor faster. I can't wait any longer. Julian laughed, brushing her nose with his finger. All right. My little minx. Hold on tight. With that, he floored the gas pedal, and the $1 million sports car shot off like an arrow. The video ended with a close-up of the license plate and the time in the bottom right corner. It was exactly 10 minutes before they crashed. The entire memorial hall fell into a deathly silence. Everyone stared, wide-eyed, at the shocking scene on the screen. I put my phone away and walked up to Lena's parents. My voice was not loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. Did you see that clearly? I asked. First, your daughter willingly got into my husband's car and urged him to speed. Second, where they were headed, and what they were about to do, I believe any adult would understand. I turned to face the journalists, my face wearing a slight, almost pitying smile. I'm heartbroken that my husband and his mistress died in such a tragic way. But what hurts even more is that, as his wife, I was the last to know he was cheating on me. My words landed like a bombshell. What not saving him? What premeditated murder? It turned out, this was a real-life melodrama of a scumbag and his mistress joyriding to their deaths. And I, Nova, was the most innocent, most tragic victim. The internet backlash accusing me of not saving him? Let me show the world the footage of his infidelity. The tide of public opinion shifted instantly. If I had once been the evil first wife who stood by while my husband died, now I was the perfect victim. Betrayed by her husband and left in the dark until his tragic death, the journalists, like bloodhounds, turned their cameras toward Lena's parents and Mara, whose faces were now ashen. Lena's father. Lena's mother. Did you know your daughter was the third party in someone else's marriage? Mara. You were just accusing your daughter-in-law. Were you aware of your son's affair? Is this video real? Anything else you'd like to say? The three of them were surrounded by reporters. Their faces a mixture of panic and shame. They never imagined that I would have such a deadly piece of evidence. And, of course, this evidence wasn't something I filmed. It was something Clara, my best friend, had found after I died in my previous life. She hacked into the villa's security system to retrieve it. At the time, I was already dead, and the evidence served no purpose other than to make netizens express their sympathy. But now, it was my sharpest weapon. Dear media friends, I spoke at the right moment. My voice tinged with just the right amount of grief. My eyes slightly reddened. Family matters shouldn't be aired out in public. Today is my husband's funeral, and I hope we can let him rest peacefully. As for the rest, I will leave it to my lawyer. My words were gracious, appropriate, and laced with just the right touch of a victim's fragility. Sure enough, the journalists looked at me with sympathy in their eyes. Silas had somehow appeared by my side. His team efficiently separated the reporters and cleared a path for me. Well done, he murmured, his tone calm. Knowing how to manipulate public opinion is the first step in modern warfare. I glanced at him but said nothing. The farce ended with Lena's parents and Mara fleeing in a panic. After the funeral, the trending topics: Julian family group CEO, and mistress die in car accident, and wife releases infidelity surveillance video, quickly shot to the top of Weibo, followed by a bright red explosive tag. The netizens' comments were overwhelmingly supportive of me. Damn. The ultimate revenge. First wife is a legend. These two scumbags got what they deserved. It's so satisfying. My heart breaks for the first wife. She's so beautiful and still got betrayed. Wasn't Lena always promoting herself as the pure and innocent girl? Gross. Turns out she's a homewrecker. Am I the only one who noticed? The first wife stayed calm and collected the whole time. Her aura is 2 meters tall. Love it. I looked at these comments, but there was no wave of emotion in my heart. In my previous life, I had been subjected to the same online abuse. People cursed me with the most malicious words, wishing the worst on me. Now, they used the same keywords to sympathize and praise me. Public opinion is the cheapest and most fickle thing in the world. But undeniably, it's also very useful. I called Silas. Silas. What's next? Lawsuit. Silas' voice remained calm as ever. We'll sue Lena's parents for defamation. We'll sue Jax for property theft. As for Mrs. Mara, I suggest filing for a change in maintenance obligations in court. What does that mean? It means you can either continue supporting her and treat her like royalty, or you can pay the legally required minimum alimony, turning her from a privileged lady into a poor, ordinary old woman who worries about every meal. Silas delivered these words lightly, but with a merciless edge. I could almost picture Mara's expression when she heard this. Let's go with your plan, I said. I have only one request: do it quickly. My team never does anything inefficiently. After hanging up, I received a message from Clara. Nova, you're famous. Well done. I've never liked that family. Clara was my college roommate and now a surgeon. She was also the only person in this world who truly cared for me. After I died in my last life, she was the only one who relentlessly sought justice for me. I replied to her with a smiley face. Out for a drink? Let's celebrate your rebirth. Clara's message popped up on my phone. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in a long while, there was a hint of color on my face. Yes, it was time to celebrate. We met at a quiet little bar. The moment she saw me, Clara pulled me into a tight hug. You've lost so much weight, she murmured, cupping my face with concern. Promise me you'll start eating properly again. Okay? I nodded, my eyes stinging a little. We talked for hours about our college days, about the years that had passed. I didn't mention the part about my rebirth. I only said that Julian's death had finally made me see things clearly. I'm glad you did, Clara said, raising her glass. To Nova, saying goodbye to the past and inheriting 100 billion. Cheers. I lifted my glass to clink against hers. And just then, a familiar figure walked into the bar. Silas. He seemed equally surprised to see me, freezing for a second before making his way toward our table. Mrs. Julian, Yandadano Sai. He greeted with a polite nod. Silas. And this is. His gaze shifted to Clara. My friend. Clara. I said. Silas extended his hand. Silas. Novus. Attorney. Clara shook his hand with an open smile. Her eyes glinting with curiosity. Well. Silas, hadn't felt my upside. How about joining us for a drink? She offered cheerfully. I shot her a look of surprise. But Silas, who rarely entertained casual invitations, didn't refuse this time. All right. He sat across from me. And somehow, the atmosphere of the bar subtly changed the moment he did. Chapter 6. My brother-in-law wanted to seize the company, so I sent him to jail. Silas's presence added an undercurrent of quiet tension to what had been an easy girls' night. He didn't speak much. Simply sat there with his usual calm, occasionally taking a sip of his drink. Yet his aura, refined, commanding, was impossible to ignore. Clara, clearly intrigued, kept the conversation going. Silas. I've heard you're something of a legend in the legal world. Clara flatters me. He replied, his tone perfectly measured. Then tell me, Silas, do you have a girlfriend? She finally asked. Eyes sparkling with mischief. I nearly choked on my drink and shot her a warning glance. Silas turned his head slightly, his lips curving ever so faintly, so quickly, I almost thought I imagined it. No, he said. Then. Clara. I cut in before she could dig herself any deeper. Are you doing a census or something? She stuck out her tongue at me playfully. After that, we dropped the personal topics. Silas and I briefly discussed the legal proceedings. The evidence against Jax was airtight. He had secretly sold one of Julian's limited edition sports cars, an act that constituted embezzlement. The court summons would reach him tomorrow. As for Lena's parents, their defamatory statements online had caused significant damage. Legal consequences awaited them as well. And Mara? I asked. I've sent you a list of premium retirement homes. Silas replied. Excellent facilities. Outstanding service, and naturally, the expenses will come out of her minimum living allowance. I nodded. It was perfect. Letting her live out her days stripped of luxury was far more satisfying than letting her die. The next day, having fulfilled my obsession, the melodrama I'd anticipated arrived right on schedule. Jax received his court summons and completely lost it. He sped all the way to the villa, blaring his horn and ramming the front gate like a madman. I called the police. By the time they arrived, he was still there, flailing and shouting profanities, breaking and entering, property damage, and verbal threats. I said coolly from the second-floor balcony, looking down at him, that's enough to keep him in detention for a few days. Isn't it? The officers exchanged glances, took in the dented gate and the raging man below, then nodded. In the end, Jax was hauled away by 2 policemen, one on each arm, dragging him like a sack of trash. When Mara heard the news, she came rushing over, wailing hysterically and threatening to throw herself to the ground. I had the guards stop her at the gate. Then, let out a sigh. From the balcony, having fulfilled my obsession, I tossed down the glossy brochure Silas had sent me. Pick one, I said. Or I'll pick for you. She stared at the brochures scattered across the driveway, then at the police car disappearing down the road. For the first time, the realization seemed to hit her. Her eldest son was dead. Her youngest was in jail. Her reign was over. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. I watched without a flicker of emotion, then turned and closed the balcony doors. With the household mess finally settled, I could turn my attention to the real battle. Julian Group. Monday morning. As the company's largest shareholder, I stepped into the towering headquarters of Julian Group for the first time. The skyscraper stood proudly in the heart of the city's business district, grand, gleaming, magnificent. I wore a crisp white suit and 10-centimeter heels, accompanied by a line of senior executives. I walked into the office that symbolized ultimate power. The decor was just as Julian had liked it, restrained and traditional. From the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched endlessly below. I went behind the desk that had once belonged to him and sat down. It felt comfortable. Much more comfortable than that cold, lonely villa ever had. President Nova. Julian's former assistant, now mine, Chen Yu, placed a file on the desk respectfully. This is last week's executive meeting summary and this week's schedule. I nodded and flipped it open. At 2 in the afternoon, an internal high-level meeting. Of course. The real feast awaited. Julian's sudden death had left the company in chaos. The old guard who had fought beside him, the ambitious vultures eyeing his throne, every one of them was waiting to see me fail. To them, I was just a lucky widow, an outsider who'd stumbled into fortune. Someone with no grasp of business. They wanted to strip me of power, to turn me into their puppet. Unfortunately for them, they had underestimated me. In my previous life, before marrying Julian, I was also a high-achieving graduate from a prestigious university, thriving in investment banking. Those business cases, those financial reports, were once my closest companions. It was Julian who broke my wings. And now, I was determined to make them grow back. 2:00 p.m. The conference room. I arrived on time. The long conference table was lined with the company's core executives. Each of them serious. Their gazes filled with varying degrees of scrutiny, some open, some hidden. To my right sat Li Wei, the vice president of the company. An ambitious middle-aged man. When Julian was alive, he was second only to him. Now, his eyes looked at me like I was nothing more than a placeholder. Someone who could be easily replaced. President Nova. The meeting began. And Li Wei was the first to strike. We all know you've just taken over the company, and aren't quite familiar with the business yet. For the stability of the company, heavy company, I suggest that, during this transition period, daily decisions should be made by the management committee together. In short, he was trying to seize my power. Several other executives who were in his camp immediately nodded in agreement. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. President Nova, you're still young. It's better to listen to the opinions of us old-timers. The company cannot function without a leader, but it also cannot have an outsider guiding the professionals. They chimed in one after another, and the atmosphere quickly turned tense. I remained silent, merely listening. Once they had finished, I slowly raised my head and let my gaze sweep across each of them. Then I smiled. Uncles, are you finished? My form of address caught everyone off guard. Once you're finished, it's my turn, I said, my smile fading as my eyes sharpened. Li Wei, you say I don't understand the business. Let's talk business. Then, I pushed a document to the center of the table. This is the investment proposal for the Swan Harbor project last quarter. The plan is to invest $50 billion in building a high-end resort. You were the one pushing for this project, weren't you? Li Wei's expression shifted slightly. The Swan Harbor project was Li Wei's pride and joy. He had partnered with several real estate companies from South City to draw up an incredibly tempting proposal, claiming they would build a world-class resort to rival the Maldives. Julian had been very supportive of this project and had even planned to inject the first round of funding. Yes. Li Wei adjusted his glasses and regained his composure. This project is the most important strategic plan for our company in the next 5 years. From both a market perspective and the expected returns, it's an unprecedented opportunity. Is it? I leaned back in my chair, lightly tapping the table with my fingers. An opportunity? Or a trap? I'm afraid that's still up for debate. My words sent a subtle stir through the room. Li Wei's face darkened. President Nova, what do you mean by that? Are you questioning my professional abilities? Or the judgment of the entire project team? I'm not questioning anyone. I only trust the data. I pressed a button on the remote, and the large screen behind me immediately displayed a report I had spent the entire night preparing. This is the climate change simulation data for the next 10 years at the location of the Swan Harbor project. The data shows that, due to global warming, the sea level in this area will rise by at least 30 centimeters in the next 5 years. This means that more than half of the beach and coastal villas you've planned will be submerged. And this isn't even the most deadly part. I switched to the next page. This is the geological survey report I obtained through a friend in the Ministry of Land Resources. It shows that the Swan Harbor site is located at the edge of a small earthquake belt. Although the risk is low, should a geological disaster occur, for a top-tier resort that prides itself on safety and privacy, Everyone in this room should understand what that means better than I do. The room fell silent. Everyone stared in shock at the cold, detailed data on the screen. This was information they had never seen in the thick, beautifully written proposal. Li Wei began to sweat. These data. Where did you get them from? Their authenticity is questionable. He made a last-ditch attempt to resist. Authenticity? I smiled. Li Wei, if you don't believe it, we can hire a third-party authority right now. Immediately. To conduct a new assessment. I'll personally cover the cost. But if the results match my report. I paused, my gaze turning cold. Then you and your team will be out of a job. Because Julian Family Group doesn't need worthless people who can't even assess basic risks. My words were firm and resolute. Li Wei opened his mouth but couldn't get a word out. He knew that if I was willing to say that, the data in my hands was undeniably real. He lost. He lost miserably. Now. I stood up, pressing my hands on the table and scanning the room. Who still thinks I don't understand the business? Who still thinks I'm an outsider guiding professionals? No one spoke. The executives who had once echoed Li Wei's words were now all looking down, wishing they could crawl into a hole. Their gazes, which had once been dismissive and critical, now were filled with awe and fear. They never imagined that this seemingly fragile young woman, recently widowed, could possess such thunderous means and such sharp, ruthless business instincts. Good. I sat back down. Since no one has any objections, let's continue with the meeting. First, the Swan Harbor project is immediately suspended. A task force will be set up to reevaluate it. Li Wei, you're excluded from the team. Second, the finance department will immediately freeze all transactions related to the project. I want to see where every penny is going. Third, from today onward, all projects with investments over 10 million must be signed off by me before they can proceed. I issued my orders one by one. No longer was it a discussion, but a command. This was me, Nova, as the supreme authority of the Julian Family Group, finally revealing my fangs. After the meeting, I returned to my office alone. The setting sun's rays poured to the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow on me. I looked down at the bustling city beneath me, but there was no joy in my heart. I knew. This was just the beginning. Today, I offended Li Wei and half of the company's elders. They won't let this slide. The road ahead is only going to get harder. Just as I was lost in thought, my assistant, Chen Yu, Adardo Lel Sai, knocked on the door and walked in. His expression was somewhat complicated. President Nova, there are rumors. Rumors about what? I asked. They say you are the widow who brings death to her husbands. Chen Yu spoke carefully. They claim not only did you kill your own husband, but now you're going to kill the company's elders too. I chuckled after hearing that. Black Widow? I shook my head. That nickname doesn't sound too good. I stood up and walked over to the window, gazing at the setting sun sinking into the horizon. Tell them, I said, that I prefer another title. Queen. The title of Queen spread quickly through the company. Of course. Mostly with sarcasm and disdain. Li Wei's faction started to spread rumors behind my back, portraying me as a ruthless woman who rose to power through my husband's inheritance. They called me jealous, mean-spirited, and even suggested I practice dark, forbidden arts. I ignored all of it. I knew that in the face of absolute strength, any rumor was like dust in the wind. I began implementing my own methods to reorganize the company, which had grown sluggish and stale over the years. I hired a professional auditing team to thoroughly review the company's accounts for the past 5 years. The findings were as expected. Inflated expenses, illegal procurement, questionable fund transfers. A massive, tangled web of interests appeared before me. And at the center of it all were Li Wei and a few other company elders. They were like parasites, feeding off the Julian family's fortune. I quietly locked the audit report in a safe. It wasn't time to play that card just yet. A week later, Li Wei, thinking the storm had passed, began scheming again. Under the guise of welcoming President Nova, he arranged a gathering at an exclusive private club and invited all the company's executives. When Chen Yu handed me the invitation, his face showed concern. President Nova. This clearly feels like a trap. I know. I took the invitation and smiled. But a trap or not, I have to go. Otherwise, they'll think I'm afraid. That evening, I showed up as planned. The private room was already packed. Li Wei was seated at the head of the table. The moment he saw me, his face broke into a wide smile. And he sprang to his feet. Ah, President Nova. You finally arrived. Please. Take a seat. His enthusiasm was over the top, as if there had never been any tension between us. I nodded and sat down beside him. After a few rounds of drinks and a variety of dishes, Li Wei finally revealed his true intentions. He raised his glass and stood up. President Nova. You've been with the company for a while now. We all admire your ability and your boldness. But the company has grown. And business has become more complicated. You can't possibly handle it all on your own. So? I swirled the wine in my glass, watching him closely. So, after some discussion, we'd like to recommend a few assistants for you, Li Wei said, clapping his hands. The door to the room opened, and 3 people walked in. One was Li Wei's nephew, and the other 2 were his close confidants. These 3 are key members of the company, and their capabilities are well known, Li Wei said, his chest puffing out proudly. From now on, they'll help share some of your workload. What do you think? This wasn't about sharing the workload. This is about Li Wei trying to install his own people in the core positions and strip me of my power. All the executives in the room were watching me, waiting for my reaction. If I agreed, it would be a surrender. I'd be nothing but a figurehead from then on. If I refused, it would be an outright rejection of the elders. And the company would become an unbearable battlefield for me. It was a lose-lose situation. I put my glass down and smiled. Li Wei's suggestion is excellent. Li Wei's face lit up with victory. The other elders visibly relaxed. But, I continued, I think it's still not enough. Everyone froze. The company needs to grow. And to do so, it requires more talent. I said as I stood up, walked to the door of the private room, and opened it. Everyone, come in. A group of people walked in. At the front was Silas. Behind him were over a dozen men and women dressed in professional attire, exuding confidence and power. Each one of them was a top-tier professional. I had personally headhunted golden investment experts, top project managers, the best legal minds, and the most skilled marketing directors. I'll introduce them to you, I said, smiling at the group behind Silas. From tomorrow onward, they'll officially join Julian Group and take on leadership roles in our core departments. As for the 3 key members that Li Wei recommended, I paused, turning my gaze to Li Wei, my smile turning icy. I think they're better suited to work at the company's grassroots level and earn some experience. The room fell deathly silent. Everyone was stunned by my move. Li Wei's face turned ashen. He probably never imagined I would not only reject his suggestion, but also throw his people under the bus. Nova, he shouted, curious. What do you mean by this? I walked up to him, picked up an unopened bottle of Lafite, and poured the red wine over his greasy face. The wine streamed down his hair, dripping all over his face. He looked utterly ridiculous. My company. My rules, I said coldly, slamming the empty wine bottle onto the table with a loud bang. You old fools who've been sitting on your thrones without lifting a finger either get out of my way, or I'll kick each and every one of you out. With that, I turned on my heel and, without sparing them another glance, led my people out of the room. I knew, from this night onward, the war between me and them had truly begun. One word from me, and all the parasites in the company were forced to leave. The incident at the Hongman banquet, where I flipped the table, quickly spread throughout the company like wildfire. Everyone knew that I, a newly appointed female chairman, was not someone to be trifled with. Li Wei's faction of senior executives was thoroughly enraged. They began to unite, scheming against me within the company. The new projects I was promoting were met with subtle resistance, and their progress was delayed. The new hires I had promoted were constantly obstructed and undermined. The meetings I called were either attended with dissent or openly contradicted. The whole company was thrown into disarray by their schemes. They thought they could pressure me into submission, force me to compromise. How naive. This was exactly what I had been waiting for. On Friday afternoon, I called an all-employee meeting under the pretext of announcing major company matters. Li Wei and the others, naturally, scoffed at attending. They gathered in their offices, sipping tea and gossiping, eager to watch my downfall. At 3:00 p.m., the meeting began on time. I stood on the stage, looking down at the sea of employees. I know, I started bluntly, that there have been many voices of dissatisfaction within the company recently. Many people are unhappy with me, the new chairman. And there are those who are waiting for Julian family group to collapse. The room was dead silent. Today, having fulfilled la assertion, I stand here to tell you 3 things. First, I pressed a button on the remote, and a document appeared on the large screen behind me. It was the audit report I had locked in the safe. This report details every irregular financial transaction within the company over the past 5 years. The total amount reaches 9 figures. A gasp swept through the room. Everyone involved in this report, my voice, amplified through the microphone, reached every corner of the room. I'm giving you one chance. Within the next hour, go to the HR department, submit your resignation, and pay back the embezzled funds. If you do so, I will let the matter go. If, after an hour, you're still sitting here, I paused, my eyes growing cold, then you won't be receiving a resignation letter. You'll be getting a subpoena from the court. My words landed like a depth charge. The faces of many in the crowd changed instantly. They began fidgeting nervously, whispering to one another. Second, I continued without addressing their reactions. Starting next Monday, the company will undergo a complete restructuring and salary system reform. We will eliminate all inefficient, bloated departments. At the same time, all employees' salaries will be reevaluated. The competent will rise, and the mediocre will fall. Your pay will be directly linked to your abilities, not your seniority or background. We will also introduce an employee stock ownership plan. Every employee who creates value for the company will have the opportunity to become a shareholder and enjoy the company's success. This announcement was even more explosive than the first one. The employees' eyes shifted from shock to excitement and anticipation. This meant that the company would no longer be a family business for a select few. It would belong to everyone who truly worked for it. Finally, Hedy Verfeldmeier. The third thing. I looked down at the young, eager faces in the crowd. I promise you this, under my leadership, within 3 years, the market value of Julian Family Group will double. And every one of you here will see your income double as well. As my words echoed through the room, thunderous applause erupted from the employees below. The applause continued for a long time. Meanwhile, in the offices of the senior executives, Li Wei and the others were watching everything unfold via internal surveillance. Their faces were no longer merely grim. They were ashen. They knew they were finished. The hour I had given them was the final ultimatum. The last shred of decency. They could either resign voluntarily, return the stolen funds, and salvage their reputations, or they could wait for public disgrace and criminal charges. They had no choice. Less than half an hour later, a long line had formed outside the HR department. The once imposing parasites walked in one by one, their heads hanging low, defeated, as they handed in their resignation letters. I stood by my office window, watching the scene unfold, my heart calm as a still pond. Chen Yu entered, handing me a cup of hot tea. President Nova, he said, looking at me with an admiration he had never shown before. How did you do it? I took the tea and took a sip. It's simple, I replied. When you strike at the vital point. To deal with a starving wolf, you have to be even more ruthless. Outside the window, the evening sky began to darken. The storm that had swept through the company had finally subsided. I knew that, from today onward, this company really belonged to the Zhu family. The company's overhaul proceeded even more smoothly than I had anticipated. The elite team I had recruited with high salaries quickly filled the power vacuum, injecting new vitality into this old enterprise. I was as busy as a spinning top, holding meetings, reviewing reports, approving projects. Almost no time for myself. But this business felt fulfilling. I could feel, more clearly than ever, that I was gradually taking control of my life, of this vast commercial empire. My anorexia, which had plagued me for so long, was now completely gone. My weight had returned to a healthy level. Clara said I looked even better now than I did in college. The only thing that bothered me, just a little, was Silas. Since the company got back on track, his appearances had become more frequent. At first, he came as the legal advisor, discussing some company contract issues with me. Later, he started casually coming by to have lunch together. Soon, no sigh. He even started spending whole afternoons in my office. Ostensibly to discuss future development strategies. He would bring me hand-brewed coffee from his favorite CAF, casually mention a new movie by my favorite niche director, and even, when I was exhausted from overtime, bring me a cup of milk at just the right temperature. His intentions had become so obvious that even Chen Yu had noticed. President Nova. One day when Chen Yu came to deliver some documents, he couldn't help but gossip. Is Silas? Is he pursuing you? I didn't look up from the documents. Merely saying, focus on your work and stop thinking about these things. But inside, my heart skipped a beat. I admit, Silas was a very charming man. He was smart, calm, professional, and had a kind of mature masculinity that was both steady and alluring. Being around him made me feel relaxed and safe. But I couldn't. Having endured that hellish marriage with Julian, I developed an instinctive fear and resistance toward relationships. I feared falling into that bottomless abyss once more, a place of no return. So, I kept deliberately distant from him. For every step he took closer, I took one step back. It seemed he had noticed my avoidance. But he didn't give up, nor did he pressure me. He was like a patient hunter, calmly weaving his web around me, waiting. Until that day. That day was my 27th birthday. I had nearly forgotten it myself. That evening, I was working alone in my office. It was nearly 10 o'clock when Silas came in. This time, he wasn't wearing his usual sharp suit. Instead, he was dressed in a casual cashmere sweater and slacks. Less the sharp lawyer, more the gentleman at home. He was carrying a cake box and a thermal container. Happy birthday, he said, placing the items on my desk, a hint of a smile in his voice. I was stunned. How did you know? I memorized your information on my first day here, he said. Something inside me stirred, like I had been lightly struck. He opened the thermal container, revealing a steaming bowl of longevity noodles, with a perfectly fried egg resting on top. Want to try? He asked. I made it myself. I looked at him, the man who could speak eloquently in court and decisively in the business world. Now, in this moment, he seemed like a big boy waiting for praise. His eyes full of anticipation and nervousness. My heart was a whirlwind. I picked up my chopsticks and took a bite of the noodles. The taste was surprisingly good. Is it good? He asked. I nodded. He smiled. And that smile was like the warm winter sun, instantly melting all the ice in my heart. After finishing the noodles, he lit the candles on the cake. Make a wish. I looked at the flickering candlelight and closed my eyes. What did I wish for? I couldn't remember. I only knew that when I opened my eyes again, Silas was looking at me, his gaze fixed and intense. The candlelight reflected in his eyes, and also in my own shadow. In that moment, all my defenses, all my fears, crumbled away. Nova. He spoke my name for the first time. His voice soft and sincere. Huh? Can I pursue you? He asked, his tone direct, yet completely honest. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at him, unable to answer immediately. I knew that if I nodded, it would mean summoning the courage to trust someone again, to believe in a relationship again. It was a gamble. The stakes were the broken, patched together heart I had so carefully assembled. Could I afford to take that risk? Just when my relationship with Silas was caught in a delicate stalemate, an unexpected visitor shattered the calm. Mara. Somehow, she had found out the address of my company and barged into the reception downstairs, demanding to see me by name. When Chen Yu came in to report, his face was conflicted. President Nova. You see. Let her come up, I said. I was curious to see what this once dominant woman had become. A few minutes later, Mara was brought into my office. She looked nothing like the woman from a few months ago. The woman who had once been radiant, clad in jewels and exquisite makeup, was now dressed in old, faded clothes. Her hair was streaked with gray, her face etched with deep wrinkles, and her eyes held a weariness and desolation that could not be concealed. The phrase "from luxury to poverty" could not have been more fitting. Nova. As soon as she saw me, she hurried over, forcing a smile that was more painful than tears. I said nothing, just quietly watched her. Nova, she repeated, seeing my indifference, her awkwardness growing as she wrung her hands. Look. We've been through some things as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Could you just let Jax go? He's still young. He doesn't deserve to be ruined like this. Jax had been sentenced to 3 years for embezzlement and intentional injury. He had injured a security guard when he rammed the gate. He's young? I smiled coldly. He's only a year younger than me. I'm 26. And I'm already the chairman of a listed company. He's 25 and still eating prison food. Mara. Tell me. Whose fault is this? Mara's face turned from pale to green, then to white again. It's me. It's my fault. I didn't raise him right. Suddenly, she plopped to her knees in front of me. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected her to go this far. Nova. Please. She clutched my legs, tears streaming down her face. If you'll just drop the charges and get Jax out, I'll do anything. I'll work like a slave for you. I'll bow to you. And she really did bow her head, knocking it to the floor. Thud. 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 The sound was muffled but loud. I looked at her, not feeling the slightest pleasure or sympathy. I only felt sad. Had she known this day would come, why did she not show me a shred of respect and kindness back then? Had she taught her son better? Not indulging him. Not covering up for him. How would things have gotten to this point? Get up, I said coolly. Stop acting. It's useless. I won't get up, she cried, her voice desperate. If you don't agree, I'll die right here. Is that so? I pulled out my phone and dialed the front desk. Send to security guards up. Ask this lady to leave. And don't let her set foot in this building again. I hung up and turned back to Mara, who had turned pale as death. I delivered the final blow. By the way, I almost forgot to tell you. Your son's doing great in prison. A few days ago, he got into a fight with his cellmate and had his sentence extended by 3 months. With that, I walked out of the office without sparing her another glance. Outside, Silas was leaning against the wall, looking like he had been waiting for me for a while. Is everything sorted? He asked. Not feeling well? I shook my head. He looked at me and suddenly reached out, ruffling my hair. You're doing great, he said. His palm was warm. At that moment, the last stir of emotion I had left because of Mara finally calmed down. Yes, why should I let those irrelevant people affect my mood? My life had restarted. I should be looking forward. Silas. I lifted my head and looked at him. Does that question you asked me last time still count? He paused for a moment. Then a brilliant light bloomed in his eyes. It counts, he said. It will always count. Then my answer is. I looked at him, speaking each word clearly. You can try. He smiled. This time, it wasn't the polite, restrained smile I had seen before. It was genuine, radiant, like a child who had just received all the candy in the world. He took a step forward, pulling me tightly into his embrace. I won't disappoint you, he promised solemnly, his voice a whisper in my ear. I leaned my head against his strong chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. I think this time, I made the right bet. I used the money from the scoundrel to start an anti-adultery foundation. Silas and I began our relationship in a quiet, sweet way. He didn't shower me with flowers or take me to the movies like other couples. Our dates were usually in my office. He would bring home-made bento boxes. And we'd have lunch together. Then, we'd sip coffee in the afternoon sun, discussing the next company acquisition. He'd help me review all the legal documents, stay with me during overtime. And when I was tired, he'd massage my shoulders. He poured his love into every detail of our work. This comrade-style romance made me feel incredibly safe and comfortable. Together, we worked tirelessly, and the company's development soared. We successfully acquired two high-potential tech companies and made groundbreaking investments in the new energy sector. The stock price of Julian Family Group soared. Nova, became a business legend and not to be underestimated. As my career found its stride, I began to think about how to handle the massive, blood-soaked inheritance left by Julian. Spending it directly? I couldn't get over the mental hurdle. Donating it? I felt like that was too kind to those irrelevant people. Then one day, I received a private message from a stranger. In her message, she shared her story. She, too, was a woman betrayed by her husband. He spent all his money on his mistress, neglecting her and their child. She wanted a divorce but couldn't afford a lawyer. Nor did she have the courage to face an uncertain future. She said she envied me. She envied my decisiveness, my bravery. She said that if there was a place in the world that could help women like her, it would be wonderful. Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. Yes, why not? I was once one of them. I understand the helplessness and despair of being stuck in the mud. Now, I have the ability. Why can't I help them? I shared this idea with Silas. I want to start a foundation, I said. A foundation that offers free legal aid and counseling to women who have suffered from betrayal and harm in marriage, to help them get out of their predicaments and start a new life. Silas was silent for a long time after hearing this. Then, he looked at me, his eyes filled with an unprecedented warmth and pride. This is the best investment plan I've ever heard, he said. What do you need me to do? I need you. I held his hand. To be the first and permanent legal advisor for this foundation. He smiled. It's my honor. I named the foundation, Nian, which sounds like my name. But its meaning was faith. I hoped it would bring a glimmer of light and a belief in survival to all the women struggling in the darkness. In Julian's name, I injected the first capital into the foundation, an amount in the 10-digit range. In this way, having fulfilled my obsession, I completed the final purification of that blood money. On the day the foundation was established, we held a small press conference. Many media outlets came. I stood on the stage, watching the flashing lights from the cameras below, feeling a deep calm inside. I established this foundation. Not for fame, not for profit, I said. I just want to use my own experience to tell all women 3 things. First, marriage is not everything in life. A man is not your whole world. Second, never stop growing yourself. Your abilities are your greatest strength. Third, and most importantly, when you face betrayal and harm, don't cry. Don't make a scene. Be calm. Be rational. Use the law as a weapon to take back everything that is rightfully yours. Then, now, turn around and start your beautiful life. My words spread across the internet through live streams. That day, my foundation received countless requests for help and innumerable small donations. I knew I had done the right thing. I cured my anorexia and, in the process, acquired my fiercest competitor's company. Once the Nyan Foundation was up and running, I felt like my life had finally found a new, more meaningful purpose. I was no longer just a businesswoman or a vengeful soul. I had become someone who could bring hope to others. This sense of achievement brought me more joy than any amount of money ever could. My health also improved. With Clara and the nutritionist's help, I completely shed the unhealthy, gaunt figure I once had, becoming healthy and full-figured. I started working out, practicing yoga. I even signed up for an oil painting class. I wanted to reclaim, piece by piece, all the years that Julian had stolen from me in my previous life. And my career, too, reached new heights. After cleaning up the mess left by Li Wei and the others, the Julian Family Group, like a massive ship unburdened of its weight, began to surge forward at full speed. Our next target was Fenghua Capital. That was the commercial empire once proudly built by Zhu, Lina's ex-boyfriend and mentor. Though he never directly appeared in my story, Fenghua Capital was closely associated with him. Although Zhu Wenzi had long since fallen from grace, Fenghua Capital remained a formidable player in the industry, especially after I acquired one of their subsidiaries. They had taken the Julian family as their number one enemy, constantly working against us at every turn. Since they like causing trouble so much, I said with a cold smile during a board meeting while looking at the latest competitive analysis report, then let's simply swallow the whole thing. My suggestion made everyone gasp in surprise. Fenghua Capital was huge, with deep roots. Swallowing it would be like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. President Nova, isn't this too risky? One of the newly appointed executives asked, a hint of concern in his voice. Risk and reward always proportional, I replied, standing up and walking over to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. The Julian family needs a hard fight to prove its strength, and I, too, need a stepping stone heavy enough to help me rise even higher. My ambition was clear as day. But this time, no one questioned me. They looked at me with nothing but admiration and a desire to follow. The battle to acquire Fenghua officially began. This was a war without gunpowder. The battle of capital. The manipulation of public opinion. The negotiations. Every stage was filled with traps and dangers. Silas, our team, and I practically lived at the office. We moved like two perfectly coordinated fighter jets, fighting side by side in the battlefield of capital. He handled all the legal obstacles, building the safest firewall. I was responsible for formulating the overall strategy and conducting the key business negotiations. During that time, I met with almost every shareholder of Fenghua Capital. I met with them one by one. I analyzed the pros and cons for them, painted a bigger picture, and offered them irresistible benefits. Finally, heading May. After 3 months of grueling work, during Fenghua Capital's shareholder meeting, I, Nova, successfully acquired the company with an overwhelming majority. The news sent shockwaves through the entire business world. No one had expected that, just a year ago, the little-known Mrs. Julian could rise so rapidly to become a business queen capable of stirring up the entire industry. The day the acquisition was complete, Silas and I stood beneath the Fenghua Capital building, watching the massive sign that would soon be replaced. We won, I said. You won, he said, looking at me with eyes full of pride. I smiled, suddenly feeling a little hungry. I want some spicy skewers, I said. He paused for a moment, then smiled. Heavy on the spice and heat, he agreed. We didn't go to some high-end restaurant to celebrate. Instead, we went to a small, somewhat crowded street-side spicy skewer shop. I ordered a large bowl, filling it with all my favorite ingredients. I ate with gusto, feeling deeply satisfied. It was just like the day a year ago when I was reborn. But this time, instead of celebrating my rebirth, I was celebrating the fact that I had truly taken control of my own life. The secret ledger left behind by the scumbag revealed an even greater conspiracy. Swallowing Fenghua Capital made the Julian family group instantly grow several times in size. With that came more complex integration and much harder management. Just as I was caught up with these tasks, an unexpected discovery threw my entire plan into disarray. While handling the financials of Fenghua Capital, our team found an extremely secretive overseas trust account. The account's transactions were highly suspicious. It was tied to both the Julian family group and Fenghua Capital in subtle, intricate ways. Yet, all the transactions had been carefully disguised and nested within layers, making it appear like a massive money laundering operation. And the real controller of this account, as our technical team traced, turned out to be someone I never expected. Julian. I stared at the investigation report, feeling my blood run cold. Julian had been secretly using Fenghua Capital to drain the assets of the Julian family. The Swan Harbor project was never an investment scheme. It was a cover. A cover that allowed him to legitimately transfer $50 billion from the Julian family to that overseas account. If I had not been reborn, if I hadn't stopped that project, then The Julian family group would have already been a hollow shell, emptied of its wealth, and Julian, along with his first love Lena, would be living it up overseas with that massive sum of money. As for me and his pitiful family, we would have been buried under an insurmountable mountain of debt. Such cruelty. How really cruel. I had always thought he simply didn't love me. That he was selfish. I never imagined he had been plotting against me from the very beginning. Plotting against the entire Julian family. That's not all, Silas said, his expression more serious than I had ever seen. He pushed another document in front of me. We traced this overseas account and found that it had financial dealings with several illegal gambling syndicates overseas. And just the day before Julian's car accident, a sum of $10 billion was transferred out of this account. My heart sank. What does this mean? Explanation. Julian, may not just be money laundering. Silas looked at me. Each word deliberate. He was most likely involved in illegal, transnational gambling. And he lost a lot. The car accident. A terrible thought suddenly crossed my mind. Could it have been not an accident? Silas didn't speak. But his silence spoke volumes. A gambler who lost everything. A group of ruthless, international criminal syndicates. Julian's death wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate, calculated murder. They staged an accident to make him and his lover disappear. Then, mud on a low sigh. The vast inheritance became theirs for the taking. Benai, the legitimate heir, from the very beginning, was their next target. A chill shot up my spine, starting from my tailbone, rising to the crown of my head. I had always thought my enemies were the Julian family. Li Wei, those visible, straightforward opponents. I never imagined that hidden in the shadows were a group of even more terrifying, more lethal wolves. They had been watching me, waiting for the right moment, when I was most vulnerable, to deliver the final blow. Why haven't they made their move yet? I forced myself to stay calm. Because they didn't expect you to take control of the Julian family so quickly. They didn't expect you to absorb Fenghua. Silas said. Your rate of growth exceeded their expectations. They are waiting for a better opportunity. Or, I added, looking at him, they are looking for my weakness. And now, what was my greatest weakness? It was me. If I die, then the huge fortune of the Julian family group would once again fall into a state of being ownerless. They would be able to swoop in. Now I understood why Silas had insisted on staying so close to me. He wasn't just pursuing me. He was protecting me. I stood at the top of the mountain, offering a toast to my past life, then began my journey forward. Upon learning this shocking secret, I felt no fear at all. Instead, a fierce battle spirit, unlike anything I had felt before, ignited inside me. Want to kill me? Want to steal from me? Fine. Let's see whose blade is faster. Or whose life is stronger. Silas and I began to lay a secret plan. On the surface, we pretended to know nothing about the offshore account, continuing to handle the daily affairs of the company. Meanwhile, we contacted Interpol through various channels and submitted all the evidence we had gathered. It was a race against death. We didn't know when, where, or how the hidden killers would strike. I arranged top-notch security for Clara and everyone I cared about. As for me, I started training in martial arts and shooting. I didn't want to leave my fate in the hands of others. If danger truly came, I hoped I could have the ability to fight back. During that time, Silas and I were inseparable. We went to work together, left work together. He moved into my villa, calling it, round the clock, personal protection. In that tense atmosphere, full of danger and uncertainty, our relationship grew at an alarming pace. We became each other's most trusted, most relied upon support. A month later, the time to close the trap finally came. On a seemingly ordinary night, I deliberately drove alone to a remote, abandoned factory where we had set up a trap. This was a deliberate opening I had left for them. Sure enough, they took the bait. Several black business cars appeared behind me like ghosts, surrounding my car from all sides. Out of the cars, more than a dozen all, menacing men in black suits stepped out, each holding weapons. I sat in the car, watching them approach step by step. My heart raced, but my hand was steady. From the passenger seat, I picked up the handgun I had practiced with countless times. Just as they were about to open the car door, the factories for corners suddenly blared with the shrill sound of sirens. Countless spotlights lit up, flooding the area with daylight. Don't move. You are surrounded. The killers clearly hadn't anticipated that this was a trap. They panicked, trying to fight back, but were quickly subdued by heavily armed SWAT officers. A massive crisis, capable of shaking the entire business world, was quietly neutralized by us. The next day, the news broadcasted the story. A transnational criminal syndicate, involving billions in funds, had been successfully dismantled. No one knew that the fall of this syndicate had anything to do with me, the business queen. Everything was over. A week later, I appeared on the cover of Forbes magazine. In the photo, I wore a red gown, standing atop the Julian family group headquarters, with the sparkling night view of the city behind me. My face carried a confident, composed smile. The magazine's description read, "A legendary woman who has turned business into an art." I held the magazine in my hand and, with Silas, went to the cemetery. Not Julian's, but a tomb I had made for myself. The gravestone had no name, only a date. The date I died in my past life. I placed the magazine and a bouquet of white daisies at the base of the gravestone. Then, have I too? I opened a bottle of fine red wine. I poured 2 glasses. One, I set before the gravestone. The other, I drank in one gulp. A toast to you. I stood before the cold stone tablet and whispered softly, "Thank you for your foolishness, your weakness, your death." Only then did I have my rebirth. With those words, I took Silas's hand and turned away, leaving this place behind. The sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, casting a warm glow on us. Warm and bright. I knew, from this moment on, the woman named Nova, from my past life, had truly died. And I, for the first time, was beginning my own life. A life with love, with friends, with a career. A life with light, with warmth. A life full of endless possibilities. How wonderful. I loved Victor for 10 years. I turned him from a poor boy into a new business tycoon. But after 3 years of marriage, my family's company was bankrupted by his schemes, and he brought his first love into our home in my stead. I was so enraged that I suffered a heart attack and died right before his eyes. When I opened my eyes, I was back in college, facing a donation box for Victor. Victor's good brother sneered at me, "Elvira. Don't think Victor will spare you a second glance just because you donated 100 yuan. Yeah. Victor doesn't even look down on you. Or your money." I paused, retracting my hand hovering over the donation box and stuffing my bank card back into my pocket. I said coolly, "Fine. Since he looks down on it, I won't donate. No need to upset you all." Victor came from a poor family with a mother seriously ill, so our class had organized a donation drive for him. In my past life, I was a naive rich girl who donated a bank card with 100 yuan, standing out starkly among the red and green bills. Most classmates praised my generosity, but Victor's friends accused me of insulting him with money. Since that was the case, I wouldn't insult him this time. But Victor's first love, Sasha, jumped out and shouted, "This is a donation drive for Victor. How can you refuse to donate now?" She was outgoing but also from a poor family, often getting close to Victor under the pretense of shared hardship. I scoffed. "You were the ones who disdained my money and told me not to donate. Now that I'm following your wishes, why are you unhappy?" Sasha turned red in the face. "You insulted Victor with your money first, which is why I'm taking it back to stop insulting him. Do you want me to insult him again?" Everyone knew I, a wealthy heiress, had been chasing the poor boy Victor. My sudden change of attitude left the whole class in shock, staring at me in silence. Sasha, Isara, ever clueless, misinterpreted my actions. Oh, you're worried about embarrassing him in public with so much money? It's okay, you can give it to him privately later. I turned to look at Victor. His gaze was fixed vacantly. And he hadn't said a word throughout. Just like in my past life. He had stood by inferiorly. As if the money wasn't for him at all. I sneered. I'm not worried about embarrassing him. Since you said you don't want it. And you don't get it. I'd rather throw this money to a dog than give it to you. At least a dog would wag its tail to please me. While Victor only ever stabbed me with cruel words. Victor was smart and good-looking. Having scored top marks in his provincial college entrance exams to become a freshman representative. One glance was all it took for me to fall hopelessly in love. But despite his high exam scores, he struggled academically among the elite at our university and couldn't secure high scholarships. The most he could get was just enough for his monthly living expenses. Even with poverty grants, he couldn't afford tuition and led strapped for cash in the big city. Other girls steered clear of him. But I was foolish enough to bring him meals every day, send him monthly allowances, pay his mother's medical bills, and buy him new clothes each season. In short, I funded his entire life. He was essentially my kept man. Yet he never showed me any kindness. When he submitted his resume to my family's company, I pulled strings to get him a position. With his qualifications, he never would have entered the Elvira group otherwise. I even proposed to him. In modern times, it's still rare for a girl to propose to a boy, especially when the boy doesn't love her. But I did it anyway, promising to fund his startup. For a grassroots like Victor, it was too tempting to refuse. He agreed. During the first 3 years of marriage, he wasn't as cold to me. At least we could have normal conversations. And I rarely saw Sasha meddling in our lives. I thought he was finally turning around and appreciating me. How naive I was. He had only been flattering me to scam my money, all while secretly sabotaging my family's business to welcome back his first love of 10 years. The day Sasha walked in, hand on her belly, she sneered, "I'm 3 months pregnant. Your family's bankrupt. And you can't help Victor anymore. Be smart and divorce him. Oh, if you hurry to your company now, you might catch your dad's last moments." She showed me her phone screen, streaming live footage of the Elvira Group's rooftop. "Guys, look at the rooftop. That's the Elvira Group's chairman. The company's bankrupt. And he's about to jump. Hey, haven't fulfilled my session. Uncle Elvira, are you gonna jump or what?" Days of overwork had left me gasping for breath. "Elvira, thanks to you, Victor could bring down your company so quickly." Sasha's laughter was venomous. I had been so busy with company crises lately, never suspecting Victor's long-planned betrayal. All those sleepless nights were his doing. My vision blurred. And I collapsed, failing to catch my breath. Through my fading consciousness, having fulfilled my sigh, I heard Victor's gentle voice, "Sasha, don't tire yourself, go sit down." What about Elvira? Good riddance. Leave her. I did die. And I deeply regretted it. Reborn. I would stay far away from Victor. Protect my parents and our company. As for Victor without my money, let's see how he survives. I expected him to come crawling back. But not this soon. The day after the donation drive, he cornered me outside the classroom. Victor reached out as naturally as ever. I sidestepped him and headed for the door. "Elvira, where's my breakfast?" He frowned, blocking my path. "Breakfast?" I raised an eyebrow. "I don't have a habit of feeding people." Victor stiffened, displeased. "What tricks are you playing now? Do you think ignoring me will make me notice you?" I flicked his arm aside. "Then why are you blocking me? Seems like you're trying to get my attention." He jerked his hand back, face darkening. How lofty Victor was, accepting my money while resenting me for it. Every time I sent him money, he'd sneer at me, warning me not to fantasize about him. Yet never once refused the cash or mention paying it back. He acted as if I owed him. His cronies were no better, despising my rich girl ways, yet leeching off Victor because of my money. Victor thought they were true brothers. That they were just after my cash. Such hypocrisy. But this time, Victor went empty-handed. His friends swarmed him. "Victor, what's for breakfast today?" He shot me a glance but stayed silent. I used to buy heaps of different breakfasts for him to choose from. And he'd share the leftovers. Today, having fulfilled Ryan's session, now, have they too? They were in for a disappointment. One of them noticed Victor's glance at me and slammed the table. Elvira. Not donating is one thing. But now you won't even bring Victor breakfast? How selfish. Annoyed by their early morning harassment, I sneered. What? Do you want me to support you for life? Why don't you call me daddy, and I'll consider it. The guy turned red but retorted. It's just breakfast. You're so rich. Can't you spare a little cash? I pretended to size him up. You know. The way you're begging reminds me of a beggar. Victor, who had been silent, finally snapped, enough. I'll get a scholarship. I don't need your charity. I looked up at him. In 10 years. This was the first time I'd heard him speak with such backbone. I couldn't help laughing. His face fell. What's so funny? You don't think I can do it? Oh. Nothing. Good luck. I'll be watching. If he could do it, why hadn't he before? He couldn't. Which was why I'd supported him so he could focus on his goals without financial stress. But even then, he'd made no academic progress. He was just average. I had sent Victor monthly living expenses. And every time, he'd spend every cent. As soon as he got the money, his friends would badger him to treat them. And Sasha would hint at her own poverty. He'd split the cash with her and buy her gifts. Looking back, I'd been a saint supporting a whole crew of leeches before I even had a family of my own. But this month, I stopped the transfers. Victor's mother was critically ill and needed money urgently. The class donations were nowhere near enough. And even after pouring in his living expenses, Victor still fell short. When the driver picked me up, he asked habitually, Miss, to the hospital? I'd visited Victor's mother every weekend to pay her bills. I shook my head. No. Home. We're done with the hospital. Don't ask again. The driver's surprised glance vanished quickly as he turned the car around. He was used to heading straight to the hospital after picking me up. It was just routine to ask. But that routine was over. As soon as I got home, the hospital called. Elvira. The medical fees haven't been paid yet. I was listed as the contact. Talk to Victor. I won't pay for him anymore. Putting down my phone, I heard Dad's delighted voice behind me. Elvira. Why are you home so early? Tears instantly filled my eyes. In my past life, he'd worked himself into poor health. Despite surviving multiple corporate crises, he'd chosen to jump off that rooftop that day, unwilling to burden me. When I didn't answer, Dad rushed over. Worried. What's wrong? Did someone hurt you? Was it Victor? I'll deal with him. I hurriedly stopped him. No one can make me feel wronged. I have nothing to do with him anymore. He froze. Then burst into laughter. Good. You've finally seen sense. My daughter is smart. She saw through his true colors so quickly. He knew Victor was no good and had tried to warn me. But I was obsessed with Victor. All he could do was try to protect me. Yet in the end, the illusion of peace was shattered. I took a deep breath and changed the subject. Dad. I saw Uncle's posts on social media saying men your age should focus on health. I'll take you for a medical checkup tomorrow. He nodded gratefully. All right. Since my daughter cares about me, I'll naturally cooperate. While he was undergoing tests, I went to pay fees and happened to see Victor and Sasha begging the doctor for more time. Treat first. Pay later. Holding my receipt, I queued up. Sasha spotted me immediately. Doctor. The payer is here. Over there. Can you treat her now? Sasha exclaimed, pointing at me. I rolled my eyes. She was clearly delusional. Ignoring how clearly I'd set boundaries before, I ignored her and paid for the medical exam. The doctor checked the system and shook his head. No payment recorded. Stop trying to fool me. Spend that energy figuring out how to raise funds. I have things to do. Excuse me. As I left, Sasha grabbed me. You paid, didn't you? I nodded calmly. I did. Then why does the doctor say you didn't? I asked, perplexed. What does Victor's mother's attending physician have to do with me? I paused, feigning sudden realization. Oh, you want me to pay for him? In your dreams. I'm not a charity. Victor frowned. You always paid before. How can you just stop? What about my mom? She's your mother. Not mine. I said indifferently. Since she's your responsibility, deal with it however you like. Victor adopted a martyred tone. If you want to be with me so badly and have her as your mother, pay the fees first. I might consider being your boyfriend. I stepped back. That's a terrible take. My mother is long dead. Are you implying you want your mother to? Sasha shrieked. Elvira. You're so vicious. You want Auntie to die. I quickly waved my hands. I said nothing of the sort you did. If you're so eager to help, pay the fees yourself. I have things to do. Don't bother seeing me off. It wasn't that I was heartless. But every time I visited Victor's mother, she fawned over me like I was an ATM. She only ever schemed against me. Even after I married Victor, constantly urging him to transfer money to her name. I would never save someone like that again. I accompanied Dad through all his exams, noting every word the doctor said. In this life, I'd ensure he stayed healthy not just physically, but in his career too. Victor took on multiple jobs but refused to treat his brothers or give Sasha money. Instead, he demanded they repay debts. He kept meticulous accounts, hounding them for repayment. Predictably, his fair-weather friends deserted him, only Sasha stayed. She probably thought my anger was temporary, that I'd never truly abandoned Victor. How wrong she was. In class, she grandstanded. I know you're jealous of me. But don't worry, Victor and I are nothing. You can keep sponsoring him. He needs money badly, give him 100 yuan. And he'll be with you. 100 I scoffed. How brazen. Who said you don't need my charity? What right do you have to lecture me? Besides, with 100 I could date anyone. Why waste it on someone like him? I curled my lip in disdain, all pride and no ability. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Victor freeze mid-step, clenching his fists. He endured days of overwork, paled his face. His expression humiliated yet pleading. Elvira. You win. I'll be with you. Just pay the medical fees. I sneered, so reluctant. Did I force you? When did I say I wanted you? He inhaled sharply, closing his eyes. You like me, don't you? I'm agreeing. Isn't this what you wanted by cutting off my money? You succeeded. Are you happy now? My tone turned icy. Let me make this clear, I don't like you anymore. You're poor and talentless. Why should I keep liking you? Stop pestering me for money. Got it? Victor swayed. Disbelief written all over him. Impossible. Even if you don't like me, can you at least help me one more time? The money I gave you should cover the fees by now. You spent recklessly, having full biopsy. Gave away the funds, blame yourself. If you need money, get it back yourself. His face drained of color. He reached for me. Elvira. I stepped back, and he collapsed. My heart jolted, recalling how I died in my past life, falling just like this, at Victor's feet. Victor. Elvira. You went too far, you made him faint. Sasha shrieked, kneeling to check on him. He was breathing steadily, nothing like my death. Just a fainting spell. Disgusting. I kicked him lightly. Wake up. No response. Classmates crowded around, whispering but refusing to help. I scanned the crowd and pointed at Victor's usual hangers-on. You guys mooch head off him enough. Now pay back the favor, carry him to the infirmary. Why? You're the one who made him faint. I sneered. You spent his money, leaving him broke and overworked. Want me to call the police to sort out your debts? Those funds were mine to start with, it'd be well within my rights to demand repayment. They fell silent, grudgingly hauling him away. Sasha shot me a resentful glare before leaving. What did she have to resent? I remembered how she constantly sowed discord between Victor and me. When I wore new clothes, Elvira's so lucky to be born rich. Changing outfits daily. We have to save every penny, right? Victor? When I carried a new bag, is that a luxury brand? Victor. You've never owned one. Have you? Neither have I. We're just not her class. With her fancy tastes. Even ordering milk tea, this costs dozens of yuan. I've never tried it. You must look down on the cheap drinks Victor and I share. I tried to defend myself, but Victor only resented me more. Convinced I was flaunting wealth to belittle his poverty. Sasha reveled in it. I had everything but couldn't win Victor's heart, while she grew close to him like stealing something I couldn't have. Now I realized, she was jealous. Jealous of my family background. using Victor to leech off me. She'd show off gifts from Victor gifts bought with my money. The watch on her wrist? A present from me to Victor. Now hers. Feigning innocence. Oh, Isn't this the watch you gave Victor? He didn't like it. So he gave it to me. You don't mind. Do you? Should I return it? But you probably hate that I've worn it. With Victor glaring at me. How could I complain? Every word was a mistake. In his presence, I'd lost all pride. I rarely gave gifts. Yet he'd casually discarded mine. I realized I hadn't bought anything for myself in ages. Every penny of my allowance went to Victor's mother's medical bills. While Victor lay in the infirmary, I went to the mall. I deserved to celebrate my freedom, and what better way than shopping? But I didn't expect to see Sasha there. She should have been tending to Victor. I trailed her and watched her enter a luxury watch store to return a purchase. Her face red. She told the salesperson she had no receipt. The gifts I gave Victor, price tags and receipts removed to spare his pride, couldn't be returned. I stood at the door, silent, as she was turned away. Embarrassed, she spun around and saw me. You came here to laugh at me, didn't you? She snapped. I nodded honestly. Furious, she hissed. This is all your fault for cutting off Victor's money. Now I have to return his gifts. Is this really for Victor? Or because you're broke and need cash? I asked, glancing at the escalator behind her. She spluttered, nonsense. What cash? Then why come while he's in the infirmary? Cornered, she snapped, since you figured it out. Why pretend? I hate you. I got close to Victor to spite you and mooch off him with your money. Of course. I stole your man and spent your cash. Happy now? I smiled but said nothing. She ranted on. So what if you're rich? Victor still doesn't like you. His mom hates you too. She wants me as her daughter-in-law. Hector's a loser. But you're the fool throwing money at him. Lucky me. Shut up. Victor stormed in, face livid. I'd seen him approaching and waited for him to hear his first love's true feelings. But instead of confronting her, he turned to me urgently. Elvira, happy now? I smiled but said nothing. She ranted on. So what if you're rich? Victor still doesn't like you. His mom hates you too. She wants me as her daughter-in-law. Hector's a loser. But you're the fool throwing money at him. Lucky me. Shut up. Victor stormed in, face livid. I'd seen him approaching and waited for him to hear his first love's true feelings. But instead of confronting her, he turned to me urgently. Elvira, I like you. Don't listen to her. Ridiculous. Into lifetimes. 10 years. He'd never said he liked me, only resented me. Enough to ruin my family. How could he utter such lies? I knew how he acted when he truly liked someone gentle, attentive to Sasha. When I died at his feet, he'd only cared about keeping Sasha seated, lest she tire. He was never like this in front of me. When I helped him secure investments and got drunk by greasy old men, vomiting until I felt dizzy, he didn't even pour me a glass of warm water. On my birthday, I bought a cake for myself and asked him to come home early. But he used work as an excuse to stay out all night. His mother thought that after we got married, she could be a harsh mother-in-law, always speaking in a sarcastic tone whenever she saw me. I endured it. But he never stood up for me. In this situation, for Victor to say he likes me is an insult to the word like. I just feel disgusted. I sneered. Do you even hear what you're saying? Sasha clutched her watch in panic. Victor, are you sick or feverish? People like her aren't from our world. She won't treat you sincerely, you're just her pastime. Victor glared at her coldly. Stop talking like this. Every time you do, you're just trying to make me oppose her. I misjudged you before. Sasha hastily grabbed his arm. I was just angry earlier. I only wanted to provoke Elvira, not really look down on you. I quietly watched this farce. Sasha was about to lose the only thing she could steal, and was desperate to regain it. But that thing was now claiming to have its own master and trying to escape her grasp. How ridiculous. While they were still arguing, I slipped away from the crowd, and they didn't notice. Victor's disgusting act reminded me that I shouldn't be so soft-hearted toward him. In the past, I voluntarily gave up the scholarship application opportunity. and Victor barely managed to secure the last scholarship spot. I also included him in various competitions even if he couldn't help. He still got a prize. Now I replead for the scholarship, cancelled the team competitions, and switched to individual events. I called my assistant and told him to follow the process for issuing corporate grants, without giving special treatment to Victor and Sasha. The grants from the Elvira family group were the highest, and Victor and Sasha the requirements simply didn't meet the criteria. I had asked the assistant to include them in the selection before. Originally, having fulfilled my desire, it was only Victor, but Sasha stubbornly grouped herself with him, as if not helping her meant looking down on them. To please Victor, I included Sasha too. A few days later, the list of scholarships and grants was announced. Sasha searched the entire list but couldn't find her name. She came to me and accused me. Elvira, how dare you remove me and Victor? Is the Elvira family group solely under your control? Isn't it? I smiled falsely. You never qualified. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have gotten those spots before. What about the scholarship? Why didn't Victor get it? I shrugged. Bad grades. Is that my fault? You're so rich, why are you competing with us for scholarship spots? Classmates gathered around, whispering. I laughed. Who did I compete with? Tell me, did I take anyone else's spot? A classmate raised their hand. No. My grades are already bad even if you didn't apply. I wouldn't get it. I'm in the top 3, you can't push me out. This is fair competition. There's no stealing involved. If you're not good enough, don't complain. Stop the moral kidnapping. We're civilized people. When Victor entered the classroom, Sasha saw him as a savior, forgetting their earlier dispute, and rushed to speak for him. Victor, Elvira squeezed you out of the scholarship and grant. She ordered it. She's so vicious and selfish, knowing you relied on them to treat your aunt. Victor pushed her away and said coldly, it's none of your business. She's not vicious or selfish, I didn't meet the requirements. And you stop sowing discord. Sasha stared at him in shock. What? I was helping you. Didn't you say you had to get the scholarship? Victor looked at me. Sasha is being unreasonable. I'm sorry. Sasha gritted her teeth and glared at me with venomous eyes. A chill ran down my spine, I had a bad feeling. Victor invited me to the lakeside. I didn't want to go, but he said it would be the last time he bothered me. After this, we'd each move on. When I arrived, he was staring blankly at the lake. Elvira, I had a dream where you weren't like this. You donated money, supported me, and married me. He turned to look at me tentatively. Ever since he first said he liked me, something felt off. When he defended me in class, it was even more suspicious. Now his probing confirmed my suspicion. I continued. And then I died, right? You killed me. Victor had also been reborn. He dropped all pretense, exuding the calm confidence of someone who had risen to power. Yet now, he was visibly nervous. I regret it. I regret not saving you. It was my inferiority and sensitivity. Sasha provoked me into resenting you. I thought she was my true love. But after marrying her, I realized she only wanted my money. She never loved me, only you did. I said coldly. That doesn't matter anymore. There's no true love left now. Victor's eyes reddened. Can you give me another chance? I died to Sasha, pushed me off a cliff, claimed I fell, inherited all my money, and even had a lover. We both died once, let's call it even. I scoffed. You killed me, not the other way around. How is that even? He pleaded. Then kill me too. Elvira, let's start over. I'll treat you better than 100 times how I treated Sasha. I really regret it. I only remembered how bad you were after I died. I looked at him in disgust. Don't bother. It's over. But I wonder how thick is your skin to say such things? Are you just trying to leech off me again? Hit me. Scold me, whatever I deserve. Just don't abandon me. Victor looked like a rejected puppy. So my dream was real. Since you're both back, you can die together. A shrill, venomous voice shouted. Sasha rushed over and pushed me hard toward the lake. There were no railings. And I couldn't swim. Victor couldn't either. But Victor shoved me in the opposite direction and dragged Sasha into the lake with him. She struggled in the water. Victor smiled. Paranoid and crazed. I'll pay with my life. Can we start over? What a lunatic. I grabbed a life preserver from a nearby pavilion, threw it to him, and called campus security. Both ended up in the hospital. Surveillance by the lake clearly captured Sasha pushing us into the water. Victor's instinctive grab for her was deemed a reflexive attempt to save himself. Sasha was detained upon waking. She knew neither Victor or I could swim. Yet she deliberately pushed us in attempted murder. After all those years as the wedge between us, I kindly visited her in detention. She looked wretched, short hair, sallow skin, stripped of the vibrant energy that had once attracted Victor. I'd always wondered how she clung to him for so long. Maybe birds of a feather flock together. Victor lived in hardship, and her cheerful demeanor in similar circumstances shone like the sun on him. Or maybe his inferiority complex festered in my presence, twisting into jealousy and hatred. None of it mattered now. Sasha glared at me bitterly. Too bad I didn't kill you. You've had everything since birth. And now you've even won Victor. You must be thrilled. Laughing at me for failing to steal anything. Like a pathetic clown. I couldn't help laughing. Who needs to laugh in my head? I'm doing it to your face. She slammed her fists against the window, rage contorting her face, desperate to claw at me. But trapped in that tiny room, she couldn't harm me. Her misery satisfied me. As for Victor, the Victor who'd killed me in my past life, if he was back, he'd atone for his sins. I'd stop funding him. And no company allied with the Elvira family would support him either. Let him earn a scholarship with his grades if he could. Spoiler: he couldn't. I not only studied relentlessly, but tutored classmates at his academic level, determined to leave him in the dust. Victor endured in silence, too afraid to complain. But his pleading stares disgusted me. After graduation, he applied to the Elvira family's enterprises. But hire him. My father outright rejected anyone with corrupt character, without my needing to say a word. Jobless, Victor took odd jobs to survive, failing to pay medical fees. His mother was kicked out of the hospital, and they crammed into a damp basement. How long she'd last? I couldn't care less. In short, he suffered. To people from similar backgrounds, matching perspectives, aligned values. Following my father's advice, I grew close to his old friend's son. We shared hobbies, respected each other's honesty, supported each other in life, and matched each other professionally. I didn't have to fawn over him, and he didn't misjudge me maliciously. When we entered a Western restaurant side by side, we saw Victor working as a part-time waiter. He approached our table, uneasy yet hopeful. Elvira. This is. I cut him off without hesitation. My boyfriend. Evan. Evan knew about my past with Victor. When I asked if he minded, he said he'd be the last man I'd ever care for this deeply, that the one who'd wasted my love would never get a second chance. Now Evan smiled confidently. Hello. I'm Elvira's boyfriend and fiancé. I've heard about you. We're getting married in a month. If you're free. Victor. You're welcome to attend and witness our special day. He held my hand. A flicker of possessiveness in his eyes. Like a guard dog protecting its meal before an opponent. I soothed him with a glance. Though he invited Victor, he kept the wedding invitations in his pocket, refusing to offer one. Clearly, having fulfilled my ansai, he wasn't sincere. I ignored this, tapped the order pad, and said coldly, We're done. You may leave. Victor hung his head in shame, muttering, There's really no chance for me. Is there? I turned away, discussing our date plans with Evan. Victor walked away in silence. I knew he'd never bother me again. My name is Victor. Watching the once brilliant Elvira collapse in anger, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. See? No matter how rich you were, it all belongs to me now. But as I infuriately watched her breath weaken until it stopped, my heart raced with unease, panic, and emotions I couldn't name. I pushed them aside, focusing on my career and Sasha. But focus eluded me. Coming home from work, I'd hear Elvira's laughter, calling, Victor, come try the new dish I learned your favorite, while drinking at business dinners. I'd hallucinate her whispering, "Don't drink so much, Victor. Your stomach will hurt." The final straw? Seeing Sasha laughing with a young man on a date. Just as she'd done with me in college. I knew what it meant. Sasha invited me hiking, claiming it would strengthen our bond. Foolishly, having falselwed session. I thought she'd changed her mind. At the isolated cliff. She pushed me off when I wasn't looking. As a spirit after death. I followed Sasha and watched her fake grief while counting my assets at night. Soon, head out a low sigh. She brought the young man home. Karma. First I brought Sasha into Elvira's life. Now she did the same to me. Before fading, I remembered all Elvira's kind. I must have loved her, blinded by the gap between us. But when I opened my eyes, I was back in college. I scrambled out of bed to find Elvira. Almost in time. No, this time, Elvira treated me with cold indifference. I could no longer take her for granted. I knew her oppress was revenge. But I deserved it. Let me atone with my life. Seeing her again with her fiancé hurt. But I couldn't deny he was better than me, too good to resent. I could only wish them happiness. As for me? I'd rot in the gutter for eternity. Just as she wanted.